Hello and welcome back to the Cozy Design Studio, or if you're new here, welcome. My name is Nick, and today we're going to be checking out some more perfectly cozy picks to get you into that spooky mood. So let's not delay any further, and let's get into the game, shall we? We'll start with a game that was recommended to me over on our channel Discord, and if you have any game recommendations or anything else that you want to chat about, do consider heading over there and jumping into the conversation. It's totally free, so if that's your thing, do consider checking it out. But okay, Wyrmhall is a small indie game you can finish in 2 hours flat. It's made by a small dev team, and it's a great example of the virtues of a simple meal well made. So let's take a look. The world of Wyrmhall is a magical and mysterious one. Wyrmhall itself is a bit of a central hub for adventurers, treasure hunters, and bandits alike to traverse the various realms in search of whatever it is they might be after. You enter the scene as a young goblin starting your first day at an artifact cleaning shop in the middle of town. When you get there, your manager briefly explains what the job entails and is then off on his much-needed vacation. Soon after that, you receive your first customer and start working. The basic gameplay centers around inspecting and cleaning different magical objects, but it's not nearly as tedious as that might sound. Most of the artifacts have different weird attributes, and so every one is a puzzle of some kind. Each of them are covered in all kinds of different debris, clumps of dirt, mites, weird green hair things, and even some invisible things which you can't see without the help of a certain magic item. Each different type of debris has an associated tool to remove it, and they're all generally color-coded, which helps with thinking on your feet. Most every object you clean has some kind of complicating factor to it. Some have a time limit, others have dangerous obstacles you need to avoid, and others are incredibly delicate and need to be handled with care so as not to break them too much. It's always fun to see what comes next and see if you're up to the challenge. Now, none of them are so difficult that you won't be able to complete the job, but some do get up there in terms of challenge level. But the real star of the show is all the different characters that you meet in your duties. I think this is where the game really shines the most. Though, don't get me wrong, the cleaning mechanics are very much satisfying and quite fun on their own, but it was all the different people that came into the shop that really kept me interested. Every one of them expands your knowledge of this weird world just a little bit more, and some really are just there for fun. The vibe of this game is such a strange mix of a high fantasy setting, but then also simultaneously an almost Star Wars-esque feeling like you're on one of the lower levels of Coruscant. It has that kind of seedy underbelly feel, but then spattered throughout the game is all this magic imagery and theming, and they manage to blend it all really well. In a way, I think it almost feels like Halloween on Coruscant or Mos Eisley or something, with all the different kinds of people from different worlds just kind of walking by and interacting with your shop. It's just such an interesting world to step into, and that soft world-building feel just really gets you intrigued. I don't know, I just really had a great time with this game. I finished it in one sitting because the whole thing takes place over the course of a week in-game, so that means you only have 7 days to get through until the actual story is over, and unlike a lot of other games do, there isn't an endless play mode. When the game is done, it's done, and I think that lends itself really well to allowing the creators to really craft a cohesive experience because they don't have to worry about randomly generating interactions so you can play forever. Instead, they're able to focus on making your limited interactions as good as possible. And I just love to see that. It's not to say that procedural generation is bad, it's the main crux of one of my favorite games of all time. But I think there is a time and a place for it, and a tight, story-based narrative like this isn't that place. And I really appreciate that the devs here understood that. But yeah, it's a cheap one to try out. It's very short, so the time investment is very minimal, and I think you'll have a wonderful time. So if it sounds like something you might be interested in, go check it out. Now, with that, let's move on to our next game. Lunacid is a personal favorite of mine. It's a game developed in 2023, but in the style of an old PC or original PlayStation game. So it's got those very simple models, low-res tiled textures, and rather clunky combat mechanics. Now, all those things might sound bad, and I think for the wrong person, they could be, but this really is a game for those of us who really appreciate the somewhat obtuse and unintuitive design of a lot of older PC games. Specifically, Lunacid is a game made in the spirit of the Kingsfield games. If you're unaware, Kingsfield was the first game that FromSoft, the creators of the Dark Souls franchise, worked on, and it would eventually lead the team to make those very same games. While the influences certainly are there, and there is a lot of interesting history to get into with the links between Kingsfield and Dark Souls, mechanically, the two are very different, and so it's a worthwhile distinction to make to say that Lunacid takes after Kingsfield and not Dark Souls. Lunacid is far more focused on exploration than it is pure combat, and that's not to say Souls games don't care about exploration, but that really isn't what they're most known for. But, like I said, Lunacid has a much heavier focus on exploration interspersed with combat. In Lunacid, combat is used kind of a bit more as like a roadblock to further deepen the exploration than as a kind of mechanical focus of the game. That's not to say there is no focus on combat, and it's certainly not a part of the game that has been neglected. There are all kinds of cool weapons and magic to get your hands on and try out, and there are plenty of opportunities to use them. The halls you explore are littered with enemies to fight and puzzles to solve, so while it's not a focus of the game, it's also by no means an afterthought. But let's talk exploration, because in my opinion, that really is the bread and butter of this game. They have you travel through all kinds of different environments, exploring the strange dungeon you've been dropped into, and you have to slowly build up your strength and hopefully find the way out and defeat all the different obstacles in your way. And the location variety on display really is a huge selling point for this game. They're all varied and unique, and it's always a really great feeling to discover a new location and explore it and find out what's hiding inside of it. And the reason I put this game on this list is because it does such a great job capturing that gothic, kind of foggy, spooky vibe. I think if there were one word to describe this game, it would have to be spooky. Anything else would be doing it a disservice. Everything from the environment to the sound design is perfectly crafted to make you feel uneasy and just a bit off kilter. It's not scary, it's somewhere in that weird place between scary and just kind of off-putting. It doesn't really feel like you could die at any moment, though combat encounters can turn sour quite quick if you aren't careful, but it's not like you, feel like you're going to die every time you turn around a corner. It's more of a feeling of foreboding or dread of what might pop up. So if you're looking for that kind of a game to play on a cold, windy fall night, this game will be a perfect companion. It's a beautiful game from a team who really know what they're doing, and one who really knows how to hone a vibe and create an atmosphere in their games. In fact, if you want an even more faithful representation of the Kingsfield experience, they just released a new game, totally for free, which was made within the same engine that the original Kingsfield game was made in. So the controls are just as clunky and unintuitive as you might assume. It's a really cool project, and hey, it's free, so if you're into that, I definitely recommend checking it out. But if you're looking for those spooky vibes, something to make you feel uneasy, and just a tiny bit of existential dread, I think Lunacid might just be the perfect game for you. So now, let's take a look at our next game. Reka is a game I have a real soft spot for. I've covered it in the past, but I think it's one that really deserves more attention than it gets. It's a really unique look at Slavic folklore, and it has a really great message about nature and modernization and how we all fit into it. It follows a young witch through her journey to become the next Baba Yaga, and the adventure takes you from town to town, helping the townsfolk solve whatever problems they might have, like lifting curses, bringing the village back in line with nature to appease the forest spirits, or any number of other important tasks. All the while, you're decorating and building out your house to be the cozy little cottage on giant chicken legs that you've always wanted. And that's one place that I think the game really shines. The design of all the decor and outfits and just the style in general. It's not a particularly hyper-real art style, but somehow they managed to get some truly beautiful visuals out of what they have. The items are all designed really well and make for an incredibly cozy atmosphere. The outfits look right out of the dream wardrobe of every eco-goth out there, and you can even have a pet cat. This game really encapsulates that kind of cusp of winter vibe perfectly. It feels like no matter where you are, you can just feel the cool breeze against your skin and smell the aroma of a cool, damp forest getting ready for winter. And when you add to all of that the little hints of magic around the world, you have yourself a truly cozy experience. And the magic is another place that I think the game really stands out. The spells are all very arcane feeling. They don't feel like that typical flashy magic fireball approach that a lot of games take. Instead, they're things like your magic ravens, which you can send out to get different collectibles, a weird teleportation spell which wraps you up in a whirlwind of feathers and brings you back to the hut, or your ability to control nearby flames with a snap of your fingers. It's all very small scale magic, and what I really love about it is that it's creative. Instead of shooting a fireball out of your hands and destroying indiscriminately, your powers are productive, and when you do use them for things like knocking down a tree to collect wood, you don't simply take, but you have to maintain balance by planting more trees in their place with an enchanted pine cone. And that is what really makes the game stand out. It's not a simple power fantasy about being a cool, sexy witch who does what she pleases, but instead it's about learning how to be a steward of the land and a bridge between the old ways that the people of the area used to live and the new way that they're creating. It's your job to bridge the gap and prevent nature from being completely trampled by the inevitable march of progress. And for all the cozy gamers out there, there are plenty of cozy vibes to go along with it. Now, the game isn't without its faults. It is in early access, so there are some pretty rough edges in places. I've seen many a walkway hovering just a few inches above the ground while walking the woods, and the menus I think could use a total redesign to fit much more holistically into the world. I would also recommend playing with mouse and keyboard. I got stuck for a while trying to figure out how to remove the mushrooms that I accidentally placed into the sacred tree here, and after about probably 10 minutes of panicking and trying to reload a save so I didn't have to lose 30 minutes of progress, I realized I just had to click on it with my mouse, but I was playing with a controller and that wasn't an option with a controller. So yeah, it's just some small polish issues, and I'm sure they'll have those ironed out eventually. Ultimately though, the game is a really great time, and it's a really beautiful look at some real-world folklore with a very relevant message for today. So this is one I very much recommend you try out. V Rising has you take the role of a vampire newly risen from the dead to take revenge on humanity for their uprising against the vampire order which used to rule against them. Don't worry about the story, it's really not the main focus here. This is a vampire-themed third-person survival crafting with optional co-op, where you're tasked with building a thriving vampire community amongst the hostile land that you've awoken into. The game takes hints mechanically from a lot of top-down RPGs. I'm thinking specifically of like Pillars of Eternity, but if you've played Path of Exile or I think Diablo, it's a similar setup to those in terms of mechanics. You have a toolbar which you fill up with different weapons and spells, and you use those against your enemies as you explore the world and discover new raider settlements and boss locations. This is an interesting mix of different genres because it is most definitely a survival crafting game. You have to explore and harvest different minerals around the environment to create a stronghold for you and anyone else you might be playing with. There are lots of different crafting benches and resource refineries and tons of different armor sets to choose from. For all intents and purposes, it's a survival crafting game. But like I said, they also take a lot from numerous other genres, like the aforementioned third-person CRPGs, and even a bit of Souls inspiration. However, the game really does focus around building up your castle more than anything else. All other activities are in service of that end. You explore to find new materials, locations, and vendors to help you build your castle. And the bosses are merely a source of item unlocks and resource farming. However, the way that they implement the bosses, I think, is pretty interesting. You have the ability to see all the bosses from your menu, and you can see what loot they will unlock from that screen, as well as how they compare to you in terms of difficulty. From there, you can choose a boss to track down and fight. After you make your selection, you get a blood scent trail leading you to them. Now, this is where the bosses get a bit weird. After you fight the boss and defeat them, you get all their loot unlocks, and you can now craft those things back at camp. But they also drop a pure heart, which is a pretty valuable resource. However, they don't only drop it once. If you want, you can track them down again and kill them for their heart. Again, and again, and again. What I'm saying is that they respawn. But they don't just respawn in some far-off arena where you have to go challenge them. No, you can actually run into them throughout the world, so it's not like if you beat them, you don't have to worry about them ever again. And I think that's a pretty good twist on the usual boss encounter formula. Now, they do become less and less of an issue as you increase your abilities and get stronger weapons and armor, so it's not like you have a bunch of Margit level bosses running around waiting to mess you up. I just think it's an interesting take on the usual boss mechanic, and I think it helps kind of organically highlight your character progression throughout the course of the game. But the other main focus is the base building, and this is where the game really stood out for me. For those of you who are new, I am a sucker for survival crafting games, and that goes doubly for a game where I get to build intricate and varied bases. The stylization of all the different things that you can build is top-notch. The castle walls have such a great gothic aesthetic, and the variety of different ways that you can customize them makes sure you can make your castle just how you want. All the different workstations have fun little animations, like the recycling chest, which is modeled after a mimic from D&D. It has this fun eating animation when you're recycling materials, or the sawmills and leather workstations. They're small details, but they add to the personality and the magical atmosphere. Now, this game is very much a survival crafting game, so if you're not someone who is into the constant push to upgrade your base and the loop of having to replace everything from time to time with a much more effective version of itself, like I know a lot of people aren't, it's more of that. But if you have my kind of brain and love creating the best little base that you can and always looking for the next material upgrade or workstation unlock, this game is going to be right up your alley. And it's the perfect game to play this spooky season. It's got vampires, werewolf-esque things, skeletons, and all manner of mystical imagery. It's a great companion for a hot cup of coffee on a cold night this fall. So go check it out if that sounds like something you would be interested in. And now, let's move on to our last game. Potioncraft is a chill little apothecary management game where you run an apothecary shop and discover new potions and try to help people with whatever it is they might need help with. The first thing that really sticks out to me about the game is its art style. It's drawn to look like the whole game is taking place on an old sheet of paper or vellum or some kind of parchment. Everything looks hand-drawn, and it's all got this really cute stylization to it. But aside from the visuals, the gameplay itself is really quite intriguing. The basic loop is that you need to take orders for potions during the day, and if you run into a situation where you don't have a potion, you need to go into the back and try to discover it. You do this by mixing different ingredients together, all of which you grow in the back garden. You're not just mixing them blindly though. You're controlling a little potion bottle as it makes its way around a map covered in new potion recipes. Each ingredient produces a different path for the bottle to follow, and you have to combine them just right to get the bottle to go where you want it to. And this is just such a fun mechanic. It's satisfying to see the map get slowly more and more revealed, and to challenge yourself to try to land the bottle where it needs to go to fulfill the order. But it doesn't stop at simply finding the right potion either. Once you do find the potion, or you happen to have it in stock when they ask, you then have to try to get the best deal that you can. This introduces the haggling minigame, where you have to try to talk the customer into giving you more money for the potion. But you have to be careful or you might overdo it and end up losing money on the sale. The game is a fun mix of strategy, skills, and story. It's always fun to hear what the people have to say when they come up, and I love getting to know all the different vendors who come by the shop and sell materials or equipment. And it's the kind of game that you can really play for a long time if you really jive with the formula. The requests can be very easily randomized, and because the focus really isn't on the conversation as much as it is the other mechanics surrounding the actual potion crafting, you could really just keep playing forever, or at least until you uncover the whole map. It's just such a great game to play in the fall. It's a great example of a cozy game, and they do a really good job managing the vibe and making it low-key and not stressful while still giving you a bit of a challenge and something to care about. And because you're making little potions, it has that magical, cozy feel to it, which, I mean, I don't know about you, but I personally really start to crave right about this time of year. So if you've been looking for something like this to play this fall, I can't recommend Potioncraft higher. It really is a great time, and if you need a time sink to waste away the cozy autumn days, there are few other games I would recommend more than Potioncraft for that. Well, that's all the games we have for today. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I hope you found it helpful. Maybe you decide to try out a game or two, and if you do, make sure you let me know down in the comments. I always love hearing what you have to say. Other than that, though, I'll just say thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you always know when I release a new video. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. I hope to see you back here next week, and as always, happy gaming.